How are you? Friday, August 6, 2021, episode 240, Old School versus New School, number 2. The previous episode, I focused on offensive hitting. I did batting average, home runs, RBIs, runs scored, total bases, and 3,000 hits. And I compared the old school players and their stats with the new school players. So what was the score on that one? The new school came out ahead in home runs, RBIs, 3,000 hits, and total bases. The old school came out ahead on batting average, and then both teams, old and new, tied in runs scored. This episode, I want to focus on pitching, old school versus new school in the pitching department. Who comes out ahead? Again, I'm doing the eras. Old school players are from 1871 to 1950. New school players are from 1951 to 2021. Okay, so let's see how it turned out. First thing I want to focus in on is wins for pitching. Did you know that from 1871 until 1950, I have it here, there were 13 pitchers that won over 300 games. I'll say it again, 1871 to 1950. There were 13 pitchers who won over 300 games. Those are the old school pitchers. Now in the new school pitchers, those are from 1951 to 2021. There were 10. So the old school wins that category. Here are the old schoolers, 300 or more wins. Cy Young, 511. Walter Johnson, 417. Pete Alexander and Christy Mathewson, 373. Pud Calvin, 361. Kid Nichols, 361. Tim Keefe, 342. John Clarkson, 328. Eddie Plank, 326. Old Hoss Charlie Radbourne, 309. Mickey Welsh, 307. And Lofty Grove and Early Wynn, 300. 13 old school pitchers, 300 or more wins. In the new school category, there were 10. Warren Spahn, 363. Greg Maddox, 355. Steve Carlton, 329. Nolan Ryan and Don Sutton, 324. Phil Necro, 318. Gaylord Perry, 314. Tom Seaver, 311. Tom Glavine, 305. And Randy Johnson, 303. Chalk one up for the old school pitchers. Out-pitched the new schoolers. Okay. Strikeouts. Let's see here. On the strikeouts, the new school. Here I have it right here. Strikeouts. New school had 25 pitchers with 3,000 or more strikeouts. The old schoolers only had 11. So chalk a win up for the new schoolers. Let's see. $2,000 or more strikeouts. My apology. I said 3,000. 2,000 or more strikeouts. 11 old schoolers, and 25 new schoolers. Here are the new schoolers. I'll do them first since they have more. Nolan Ryan, 5,714. Randy Johnson, 4869. Steve Carlton, 4136. Bert Blyleven, 3701. Tom Seaver, 3640. Don Sutton, 3574. Gaylord Perry, 3534. Greg Maddox, 3371. Phil Necro, 3342. Ferguson Jenkins, 3192. Bob Gibson, 3,117. Same number for Pedro Martinez. How about that? John Smoltz, 3,033. Jim Budding, 2855. Mike Messina, 2813. Tom Glavin, 2607. Warren Spahn, 2583. Don Drysdale, 2486. Jack Morris, 2478. Dennis Eckersey, 2401. Sandy Koufax, 2396. Robin Roberts, 2357. Juan Marshall, 2303. Jim Palmer, 2212. And Catfish Hunter, 2012. 25 new school pitchers had 2,000 or more strikeouts. From 1951 to 2021. Old school, 1871 to 1950, there were only 11 with 2,000 or more strikeouts. Walter Johnson, 3509. Cy Young, 2803. Bob Feller, 2581. Tim Keefe, 2584. Christy Masterson, 2502. Early Wynn, 2334. Rube Waddell, 2316. Lefty Grove, 2266. Eddie Plank, 2246. Pete Alexander, 2198, and Dazzy Vance, 2045. Okay. Next, innings pitched. Who wins? Old school or new school? Well, I have from 1871 to 1950, there were 30 Hall of Fame pitchers who had 3,000 or more innings. As far as the new schoolers, from 1951 to 2021, there were only 24. Rack up the win for the old schoolers in that category. All right, old school, 3,000 or more innings. Cy Young, 7,356. Pud Calvin, 5941. Walter Johnson, 5914. Pete Alexander, 5190. Kid Nichols, 5,056. Tim Keefe, 5,049. Mickey Welsh, 4802. Christy Masterson, 4780. Early Wynn, 4564. John Clarkson, 4536. Old Oss, Charlie Radbourne, 4535. Eddie Plank, 4595. Epi Rixey, 4494. Red Ruffing, 4344. Burleigh Grimes, 4179. Ted Lyons, 4161. Red Faber, 4086. Vic Willis, 3996. Lefty Grove, 3940. Bob Feller, 3827. Amos Russi, 3769. Wade Hoyt, 3762. Carl Hubble, 3590. Herb Pennock, 3571. Joe McKinney, 3441. Rube Marguard, 3306. Jesse Haynes, 3208. Mordecai Brown, 3172. Stan Koviski, 3082. And Chief Bender, 3017. 30 of them, 3,000 or more innings. New school, there are only 24. Phil Necro, 5,404. Nolan Wright, 5386. Gaylord Perry, 5350. Don Sutton, 5282. Warren Spahn, 5243. Steve Carlton, 5217. Greg Maddox, 5,008. Bert Blyleven, 4970. Tom Seaver, 4782. Robin Roberts, 4688. Ferguson Jenkins, 4,500. Tom Glavin, 4,413. Randy Johnson, 4,135. Jim Palmer, 3,948. Bob Gibson, 3,884. Jack Morris, 3,824. Jim Bunning, 3,760. Mike Musina, 3,562. Juan Marshall, 3,507. John Smoltz, 3,473. Catfish Hunter, 3,449. Don Drysdale, 3,432. Dennis Eckersey, 3,285. And Whitey Ford, 3,170. Okay. So this is what we've done. We've done the wins, the old school wins. We've done innings, old school wins. Strikeouts, new school wins. Okay. So we did strikeouts, yep, 2,000 or more. We did innings and we did wins. How about ERA? Who wins in the ERA title? Well, under 3. That means 0 to 2.99. Who wins? Old school, 25. New school, 11. Old school wins that category. All right, I will go to the ERA and point you out who they are. Okay, where is it? I've got it in here. Oh man, where are you? Old school ERA. I've got it, here it is. Old school, I told you there are 25 of them from 1871 to 1950. Under 3. Okay. Ed Walsh, 1.82. Eddie Joss, 1.89. Mordecai Brown, 2.06. John Ward, 2.10. Christy Masterson, 2.13. Rube Waddell, 2.16. Walter Johnson, 2.17. Babe Ruth, 2.28. Eddie Plank, 2.35. Chief Bender, 2.46. Pete Alexander, 2.56. Tim Keefe, 2.62. Cy Young, 2.63. Vic Willis, 2.63. Joe McKinney, 2.66. Old Hoss Charlie Radbourne, 2.67. Jack Chesborough, 2.68. Becky Welsh, 2.71. John Clarkson, 2.81. Pud Calvin, 2.87. Stan Kolvisky, 2.89. And Kid Nichols, 2.95. And Carl Hubble, 2.98. 25 old schoolers had ERA under 3. New schoolers, only 11. Mariano Rivera, 2.21. Hoyt Wilhelm, 2.52. Whitey Ford, 2.75. Sandy Koufax, 2.76. Bruce Suter, 2.83. Jim Palmer, 2.86. Tom Seaver, 2.86. Trevor Hoffman, 2.87. Juan Marshall, 2.89. Raleigh Fingers, 2.90. Bob Gibson, 2.91. Pedro Martinez, 2.93. Don Drysdale, 2.95. And Goose Gossage. Nope, Goose doesn't count. He had 3.1. So Don Drysdale will be the last. ERA, old school wins. All right, and then the last category on pitching will be shutouts. Who wins? Old schooler. All right, 50 or more shutouts. Who wins? Old school, 1871, 1950, there were 10 old school pitchers with 50 or more shutouts. The new school, 9. From 1951 to 2021, there are 9 new school pitchers with 50 or more shutouts. Old schoolers, Walter Johnson, 110. Pete Alexander, 90. Christy Mathewson, 79. Cy Young, 76. Eddie Plank, 69. Warren Spahn, 63. Pud Calvin, 57. Ed Walsh, 57. Mordecai Brown, 55. And Rube Waddell, 50. Vic Willis, 50. 10 of them. How about that? 9 new schoolers. Nolan Ryan, 61. Tom Seaver, 61. Bert Blyleven, 60. Don Sutton, 58. Bob Gibson, 56. Steve Carlton, 55. Jim Palmer, 53. Gaylord Perry, 53. And Juan Marshall, 52. How about that? So let's add up the score. And we'll combine hitters and pitchers. Who has the most? Old school, 5. New school, 5. And ties, 1. So we have to break the tie. Where did the old school win? Old school won on batting average. Okay? From 1871 to 1950, there were more old school players that had a better batting average, had a 300 or better batting average. There were more of them than new schoolers. So that's 1 win for the old school. 2 on shutouts. 3 ERA. 4 wins. 5 innings. So that's their 5 categories. I'll repeat it. I'll go slow. The old school players from 1871 to 1950 won in 5 categories. 1, there were more old school players that had a 300 or better batting average. That's 1 category. 2, there were more old school pitchers that had 50 or more shutouts. That's 2. 3, there were more old school pitchers that had an ERA under 3. 3. 4, there were more old school pitchers that had 300 or more wins. That's 4 categories. And in 5, there were more old school pitchers that had 2,000 or more innings. So that's their 5 categories. The new schoolers, they win with home runs. There are more new school players with 400 or more home runs there were more new school players with 1,500 or more RBIs. There were more new school players that had 3,000 or more hits. And there were more new school players that had, 5,000 or more total bases. So that's their 5 wins. Now they both tied in runs scored. So the score is old school 5, new school 5 categories, and 1 tie. How do we break it? We break it by a certain category that I came up with. Since I'm doing the episode guide, I determine the category. And this is the category. The combined statistics of hitters will break the tie. And the combined statistics of pitchers will break the tie. All right, how do you determine on the hitters? The hitters you would do is you would add hits, runs, RBIs, and batting average as one number. For example, 1 hit plus 1 run is 2, plus 1 RBI is 3, and if their batting average is 100, then you would have 104, right? Are you following me? 103. So in the hit category, I'm going to break the number off at 7,200 total score. For example, Ty Cobb, 4,189 hits, runs 2,246, RBIs 1,944, and his average is 366. Combine all those numbers, his total score is 8,745. So, if we want to break it off at the number 7,200, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players with a score of 7,200 or better. Ty Cobb is 1, 8,745. His total score, hits, runs, RBI, and average. Add all those numbers, and I'll give you Ty Cobb again. Follow along, okay? He had hits, 4,189. Runs, add runs, 2,246. Add the RBIs he had, 1,944, and average his career batting average, 366. That comes out to a number of 8,745. Okay, 1. Who's number 2? Cap Anson. His total score, 7,843. Babe Ruth, 7,603. Tris Speaker, 7,270. And Honus Wagner is the cutoff, 7,219. 5 players. That's old school. In the new school category, who breaks 7,200? Hank Aaron. He had 3,771 hits, 2,174 runs, 2,297 RBIs, and a 305 lifetime batting average. He comes out 8,547. So he's 1. Stan Musial, 7,861. Willie Mays, 7,550. And Carl Yastrzemski, 7,364. So the old school wins 5-4. You want to hear the top 10? At the 7,200 cutoff mark. Ty Cobb 1. Hank Aaron 2. Pete Rose was 3, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. Stan Musial 4. Cap Anson 5. Babe Ruth 6. Willie Mays 7. Carl Yastrzemski 8. Tris Speaker 9. And Honus Wagner 10. the top 10 in hitting combined stats of hits, runs, RBI, and batting average total. You following me there? All right, let's go to pitching. What should we do on the combined stats totals of pitching? Who wins there? Well, I'm going to break it off with the top 10. I've got to break it off at a certain number because the number just goes on. I'll have an episode of the combined stats. Who wins in this category? The new schoolers will win because I'm going to break off the number at 8,734 combined. So you have innings, strikeouts, wins, and as a total number. For example, Nolan Ryan, 5,386 innings, strikeouts, 5,714, wins, 324, and his total number is 11,427. Woo! So the new schoolers have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of the top 11. And the old schoolers just have 2. Cy Young, 10,687 combined number, and Walter Johnson, 9,874. So in pitching or in hitting, old school wins, but in pitching, the new school wins as far as total score. So what is, here it is, one for old and one for new. The score is 6-6 and a tie. So what do? Who's better? Old school players combined with hitters and pitchers, or new school? Which era was better baseball? 1871 to 1950 or 1951 to 2021? My argument in my last episode was, in the old school era, there were less players. So as a result, you're not going to have as many stats. In the new school era, there are more players, and as a result, there'll be better stats as far as hitting. But isn't it interesting that in the old school pitchers outperformed the new school pitchers as far as wins, innings, ERA, and shutouts? The only where the new schoolers prevail is in strikeouts. So yeah, the old school has the shutouts, ERA, wins, and innings. The new school has, as far as pitching, they have strikeouts. The new schoolers, they do better in home runs, RBIs, hits, 3,000 hits, and total bases. The old schoolers, they just do better in a combined batting average. So here's how I'm going to do it. They each won 6 categories. So it's 6-6 and 1 tied. They tied and runs scored. What would I do to determine which era I prefer? Do you prefer home runs, RBIs, and total bases? Or do you prefer a combined career batting average and then wins, innings pitched, and ERA and shutouts? Which one do you prefer? All right, which one wins more games? Pitching and batting average, which the old schoolers have the advantage? Or which one wins the game? New school, where you have the home runs, RBIs, and total bases. I'm going to have to pick career batting average over 300, all those players, because they're getting on base. And each game, the factor is you got to get on base, so you need to get the hit. So the career batting average is crucial. How many games where you have more home runs than RBIs? Which has more in the game? A base hit or a home run RBI? Well, obviously, base hits. A team will get 20 base hits. But in home runs, maybe there'll be 3 or 4 home runs, and then RBIs will be 8, 9, or 10 RBIs total for the game. Are you following me? So I think the career batting average is more crucial to the game of baseball than home runs and RBIs and total bases. Now, as far as pitching, what's more valuable? The innings pitched, the wins and the shutout and the ERA, or the strikeouts? Well, the old school has the advantage in innings, shutouts, ERA, and the win of the game. The new school has the advantage in strikeouts. So I'm going to have to pick the wins, ERA, shutouts, and innings pitched over strikeouts. Strikeouts, you may have 10 for the game, but in the ERA, you limit them under 3, earned run average under 3, and you get the innings pitched, which are 9 innings, and maybe you get a shutout. I'm picking old school era players over the new school era players. I know home runs and RBIs and total bases are exciting, but there's not as much of them that there are in hitting and pitching in the old school era, because those guys, they batted Ty Cobb 366, Roger Hornsby 358, even Shoeless Joe Jackson, who's not in the Hall of Fame, 356. Ted Williams, 344. Babe Ruth, 342. Lou Gehrig, 340. Tris Speaker, 345. New era. Who has the highest average in the new era? Hey, look that up really quick. Which new school era had the highest batting average? All right, let me go to that section. That was interesting, wasn't it? All right. I'll prove it to you. Old school. Ty Cobb, 366. Roger Hornsby, 358. Ed Delonte, 346. Career batting average. Tris Speaker, 345. Billy Hamilton, 344. Babe Ruth, 342. Harry Hagelman, 342. Willie Keeler, 341. Bill Terry, 341. George Sisler, 340. Lou Gehrig, 340. Nap Lajoie, 339. Now in the new school, who's the highest? Ted Williams, 344. So if I lumped him in with the old, I didn't mean to. He's in the new school era because he played mainly all the 50s and then up to the 60s. He played the 40s and 50s, but he's right there in the middle. I'm going to put him in new school. Okay, I just read off the batting averages of the old schoolers. Much better than the new schoolers. The new schoolers, the highest is 344, Ted Williams. Then Tony Gwynn, 338. Stan Musial, 331. Wade Boggs, 328. Rod Carew, 328. Kirby Puckett, 318. Vladimir Guerrero, 318. Roberto Clemente, 317. Edgar Martinez, 312. Larry Walker, 313. And Derek Jeter, 310. See? So look at this. There are 5 players that had a better average than the highest guy on the new school. And out of the top 10, 10 out of the 11 players in the old school have a higher batting average than the new schoolers. See what I'm talking about? Now, as far as pitching, the wins. The old schoolers dominate on wins. Listen to this. Cy Young, 511. Walter Johnson, 417. Pete Alexander and Christy Masterson, 373. Pud Calvin, 361. Kid Nichols, 361. Tim Keefe, 342. John Clarkson, 328. Eddie Plank, 326. Old Hoss Ragburn, 309. Mickey Welsh, 307. Lefty Grove and Early Win, 300. Did you see that? How about new schoolers? Warren Spahn, 363. Greg Maddox, 355. Steve Carlton, 329. Nolan Ryan, 324. Don Sutton, 324. Phil Necro, 318. Gaylord Perry, 314. Tom Seaver, 311. Tom Glavin, 305. Randy Johnson, 303. So there are 4 players ahead in the old school, ahead of the new schoolers as far as wins. Then only Warren Spahn, 363, and Greg Maddox, 355. You cut it off, and there are 6 players ahead of Greg Maddox. And then out of the top 11 or 12, there's 11 players with more wins than the old schoolers. See what I'm talking about? I think I proved my point. 1871 to 1950. I'll repeat myself again. Those players were better ball players than the new school players from 1950 to 2021. If you disagree with me, that's okay. Who would you pick? Well, my next episode, old school versus new school, starting lineup. We'll see how that goes. Hey, thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for listening. I think I proved my point. Thanks for watching. I'm out.